Hi there, it's time to look at Bitcoin through the Wyckoff lens again. If you're new to my sessions, here are the 3 key items I will cover during the session. I'm not a financial advisor, these sessions are for research and education purpose only. So Bitcoin has finally broken outside of the downward channel. When we get to the daily chart, we'll look into it in detail. As of now, from a big picture perspective, as we're looking at this weekly chart of Bitcoin, we are seeing narrower and narrower price spread. So over the course of past 4 weeks, compared to the previous months, we see these candlesticks that are having shorter bodies or even showing the signs of crosses, combined with slightly declining volume. All right, not as low as the period when it was building up to the upthrust, but still getting close enough. So that means the market is waiting for direction. However, when we step into 2026, by the time we get to the next Bitcoin session, it's the time for a Happy New Year. But be very careful, that kind of may it be a relief rally coming to the LPSY. That kind of joy may not last too long. Just be careful and cautious of that. The price rises of gold and especially silver in recent days is telling us the market is preempting something that's going to happen. What is breaking that the guys with advanced access to information already know. For us, we'll have to wait for the news to be announced. But those kind of movements are signaling something is going wrong. Even if Bitcoin is able to stay above this light blue line, this 85K, for over the past 5 weeks, it has been staying above this line and trading all the way up to 95K. So this 10,000 range, even if Bitcoin is able to stay there, or even go up to challenge the 104K purple key level, be cautious that what's going to turn it to the other side. So assuming it's staying above this line, the sign of weakness that I have shared about earlier, like challenging the similar light blue level of 74K back in this period in early or the beginning of this year, since early March all the way till early April, it may not come down as of this moment given this backdrop. But I'll show you in the daily chart the date that we're expecting some changes may be coming. It may first have the relief rally before it actually comes down for the next sign of weakness. So it doesn't have to always come this low and then bounce up. When we see the price actions now, that it seems to be stabilizing around this 85 to 95K level, another option can be the bounce comes first, and then eventually it comes down to the 74K, this dual support level, and then it may bounce one more time before it actually goes back to accumulation. There are 2 exceptions to this. So if, say, scenario 1, there is a black swan event, no matter it's COVID or something else, the government has to print a whole lot of money, they have no choice, then the price of Bitcoin will obviously surge, not because of the reason that it has actually rise in value. I shouldn't say it this way. It has risen in value, but in reference to the US dollars, just like gold and silver, all right? If there are more money printed, then obviously these things will rise in prices. But be also very careful about Bitcoin. It's still not like physical assets like gold and silver. It can still go the other way if people think that Bitcoin is not going to be the safe haven that they want it to be, or at least they don't trust it as much as gold and silver. All right. Scenario 2 is that during this course of money printing, like ending the quantitative tightening and started to buy back some of their the standard operations the Fed is doing. What's going to happen is that, tying to the gold, especially silver prices skyrocketing, some financial institutions may get into, I won't say a crisis, maybe a liquidity challenge scenario, all right? And if it goes wrong in a certain way, then the government has to step in and save somebody, all right? Let's put it that way. That's scenario 2. And in that scenario, unfortunately, it becomes something similar to why Bitcoin was born in the first place. Back to the global financial crisis period, almost getting to 20 years ago now. The time flies, right? It's about 16, 17 years now, stepping or getting very close to 20 years. So when that happens, once again, there's no choice but to save some systematically important or critical institutions. And in that scenario, that may be better than the first one, because in this case, people or whoever is selling the news is going to say, that's why we need Bitcoin, and they have a louder voice in this scenario too. And the worry that when I mentioned about the scenario 1, would be less of an issue, because the voice of, that's why Bitcoin was born and that's why we need Bitcoin, those people will speak louder, looking at that particular situation, because the central banks are stepping in to save certain financial institutions again, okay? So those two scenarios would obviously lead to very likelihood of another price surge of Bitcoin. But going back to the chart itself, all right, here, assuming those two scenarios doesn't happen, this rally that comes in probably next year and eventually goes back to the accumulation cycle, that would potentially be fueled by the the situation seemingly getting better, all right? Like when the Fed finally ends the quantitative tightening and the liquidity seems to resume to a slightly healthier scenario, okay? Then this relief rally may happen. Just a maybe, okay? Now let's get to the daily chart. All right, so this particular triangle that we talked about for a couple of weeks finally confirmed that Bitcoin has moved outside of this downtrend. All right, so right before December 28th, like I said. So on the 22nd, it was still a bit uncertain. You see this long wicks from the top and then a shorter one from the bottom, but the price spread is the candle body is pretty short, so that means it's pretty undecided around that price level of 88k 500 or 600. Okay, eventually the next day the bears try to pull the price back to the downward channel, but the bulls really strike hard from the bottom and pushes the price back to above the ceiling of the downtrend. So you see those 2 days over here, those long wicks from the bottom. The bulls got in, fighting really hard. The battle still continues over the course of the past 2 days. Today it's kind of stabilizes. May it be because of they're getting tired after a few days of fight, and this is currently Christmas period, plus also because of the price surge of silver is potentially taking certain attention or driving attention away from Bitcoin for a short while. All right, and what we are looking or what we're seeing here after this time point is that if I draw two lines from this point to this point, this higher lows, all right, and then another line. We have to do it this way. So assuming this is still developing, but assuming this is the case, all right, so enlarge it once more, and let's adjust it to the top of the wicks, okay, all these three, assuming this is the boundaries, okay, these two boundaries over here is forming a wedge, all right, so this particular wedge over here, where it is pointing to, let's borrow, or let's clone this, pointing to this, that's pointing to somewhere around the 4th of January. So not too far from now, roughly about a week. So this, when the price continues to trade narrow range along this wedge, this is another decision point. So yes, it has gone outside of the downtrend, but in a week's time, roughly, it's going to get into another decision point to tell us, is this narrow range activity going to lead to a northbound action heading towards the 104K purple key level, like I talked about in the weekly chart, or is it going to come down towards the sign of weakness level, like around the 75, 74K? We're getting very close to that. In the past, I used to share this Bollinger Band Keltner squeeze, and now you see it has light up this bar over here. Once again, this Bollinger Band Keltner squeeze is showing up a squeeze has happened. And if you're new to this, when a squeeze happens, what it leads to, or what comes after, is price fluctuations. Sometimes it goes up first. So let me switch off the drawing so it's easier for you to see. So sometimes it swings to the downside and then goes up, and eventually continue to swing until it's narrowed down again. Alright, sometimes it goes the other way, but eventually, you know, it's unavoidable that the swing will happen. Okay, that's the nature of trading. You know, waves doesn't just go one side. It goes up and then it comes down. Alright, and this, you see how large this patch is. This has been gathering strength for quite a while already. Alright, compared to the previous period, you see the width of this. So be mindful or be careful as to what's going to come. Alright, I haven't shown this indicator for quite a while, but it is time. Okay, so let's see what's going to happen in the coming week. When we get back into 2026, some people may start working because it's a new year, new tax window, all sort of reasons. The very first quarter of the year, you know, who knows what's going to come later in the year when things start to crack. All right. I already shared in my earlier video about Japanese interest rates hike. That's exactly the biggest unknown for the markets right now. If they continue to rise, which they already announced that they will, but at a different pace as the market is expecting, then that uncertainty is going to lead to bigger fluctuations, not only in crypto market, but maybe even wider in the stock markets as well. So it will be an interesting year in 2026. All right. See you in the next session. I'm going to talk about Tau, and afterwards we'll go through a speedrun sessions for the DeFi protocols.